And we're live. Good to have you all back here. You can see I'm still on the boat, and you can also know right now that things have just gotten progressively worse. Funny. I say progressively, right? Shall we say progressively worse for one Letitia James? Because when MSNBC is calling you out and saying, you know, things are not looking good for you, I think it's probably time to worry. We're going to talk about that story. Plus, I want to get into what's going down in D.C. right now. The president saying he's going to remake the city. He's going to make it safe. He's going to make it clean. And oh my gosh, you'd think he was igniting World War III there, for goodness sakes. Well, maybe he is, because the Democrats are positively, absolutely losing it. And I mean losing it. Like full-on meltdown over this, except for there's one, the media too. It's not just the Dems. The media is losing it. I mean, the New York Times, for goodness sakes. You'd think they lived in D.C. They're like, D.C. is fine. D.C. is safe. I'm sorry, guys. Like, you don't live in D.C. Trust me. Like, go visit D.C. and tell me how safe you feel on the streets of D.C. So D.C. very much in the crosshairs right now. And I want to just point out that Adam Schiff, his issues, shall we say, have just grown so much worse. I mean, the Schiff show, well, just remember what he said. And when you find out what just went down allegedly, with the whistleblower coming forward saying, you know what, Adam Schiff was out there trying to release classified intel. It's believed he did release classified intel in order to somehow, I guess, take down Trump. Apparently, according to these documents, and we'll get into them in the show, he actually thought he had a shot of being the next director of the CIA. Oh, that would have been great, right? Wow. But he was very aspirational, and he thought he had a chance at that under Hillary Clinton. It's all come out in these whistleblower documentations. There's 3,500 pages of evidence that Adam Schiff had access to, and people are saying, like, this is treasonous. So he's in a lot of trouble, not just because of what's going on with the alleged mortgage fraud. You know, you can't have two primary residences. You can't have a primary residence in the state of Maryland when you're the representative from California, but also because of what he did vis-a-vis this.
In which the Russians offered help, which we know they did. The campaign accepted help, which we know they did. The Russians then delivered help, which we know they did.
There is circumstantial evidence of collusion.
The case is more than that, and I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. So,
you've said on more than one occasion that you've seen ample evidence of the Trump campaign's Russia collusion. Last March, you said you had more than circumstantial evidence of treasonous collusion with Russia.
I've certainly said that there's ample evidence of collusion.
Can you agree that there has been no evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy that has been presented thus far between the Trump campaign and Russia?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy.
but we do know this. The Russians offered help. The campaign accepted help. The Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning.
Reviewing the evidence that I have.
Okay, you want to talk about what's pretty damning? That tape. Oh, and there's plenty more where that came from. One Senator Schiff. Talking about the Schiff hitting the fan, for goodness sakes. Oh my gosh, this guy's in big, huge trouble. Okay, we're going to get into all of that. But Letitia James is also in big, huge trouble. I mean, when you got MSNBC, ladies and gentlemen, MSNBC admitting that, you know, she could be in the slammer for some 30 years, I'd say you're in tough shape. Now, they brought their legal analyst on last night to talk about what she's really facing, which I'll just simplify it for you. It's 30 years in prison, okay? 30 whole years in prison. Letitia James is in serious trouble, and she's got two investigations from the DOJ. One coming out of Northern Virginia, the other coming out of Albany, New York. So this is the big deal. The subpoenas just went out in New York, and just to understand the scope of what she's facing, I think it's one thing to hear it from me, right? It's another thing when you hear it from the legal analyst on MSNBC. Like, this is not good. It's not good for her. I mean, it's how shall we say, karma? Like, I mean, let's be honest, right? This woman was vicious in her attack Unbelievable. And we can dig into that. But what she actually was alleging was bizarre, especially in light of, well, pot calling kettle black, so to speak, what she may have done in terms of her own mortgage. Yeah. It's like it takes one to know one, for goodness sakes. Here she was out alleging that President Trump was trying to inflate certain things like square footage on his residence, inflate the value and, in terms of what he estimated Mar-a-Lago to be worth. And yet what was she doing? Oh, well, she was deflating. In the case of the Brooklyn apartment building, apparently saying she had 4 units instead of 5. And then there was the residence in Virginia, which she claimed was her permanent residence, which obviously, if you're the Attorney General of the state of New York, it cannot be your permanent residence. But anyway, she went after him for this, that, and the other. And yeah, you know what? What goes around comes around, shall we say. I guess she started this fight, which is what everybody knows and everybody admits. Even New York Magazine had a headline saying this is her own doing. I mean, she made her bed and now she's going to lie in it. And it could take 30 years to get out. Listen to this guy.
There is nothing scarier for a citizen to get a subpoena or find out that they're being investigated by a federal criminal grand jury. It's terrifying. And here's why. Grand jury investigations sweep broadly. They gather terabytes of information, and they're very efficient at going through it. And the problem there for people is that they may be investigating issue number 1 and then stumble across never before known issue number 2 when going through all those documents. That is why if somebody is the subject, the target of a grand jury investigation, that is not a good sign. So given that the federal government has such tremendous power to investigate, Letitia James should be very concerned. Not that she necessarily did anything wrong, but because that kind of scrutiny of financial records, of business records, everything going back probably years might yield something that the government finds interesting.
I mean, like, how about just saying, if we really wanted to go back in time to the mortgage application that she filed with her father, in which she said her dad was actually her husband. I mean, you could go back and find all kinds of things, I suspect, I think. And you know what? If she was violating Trump's civil rights, you know what? She was violating a whole bunch of other people's civil rights. And that's what they're going to try and determine. I mean, don't forget how rabid she really was, right? I mean, this woman was out for blood. It was really clear.
He's called me venomous.
We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City.
He's called me disgraceful.
Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. An illegitimate president and an illegitimate member of the United States Supreme Court.
He's called me radical.
Listen, yes. We know he's crazy. Yes. We know he doesn't have a sound mind. Yes. We know he's out of control. Yes. We know he's losing it. Yes. We know his days are numbered and we will come together.
He's called me a racist.
We've got to stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale.
Thank you.
Well, it's all coming back to bite her big time. And again, think about what's going on now. You get the Albany case in which they're alleging she violated Donald Trump's civil rights. And this is something that has come up, has it not before? I mean, I think about something that Stephen Miller said rather recently about how she really did far more than what people were talking about vis-a-vis the concerns about the mortgage, fraud. For the lack of a better term, okay? Mortgage fraud. And I saw one of your comments. You guys are saying, maybe 90% of members of Congress committed mortgage fraud. I mean, that's unbelievable to me. You do not just, say, hey, I want to save a couple points. And it's even less than that. It's like, a quarter of a point probably that they're saving on their mortgages and doing that. But it wasn't just that that's being alleged now. It's this other thing that's coming forward with this other investigation. So they've got 2 bites at the apple. So basically, Pam Bondi is going to say, okay, you in Albany, you in Northern Virginia, you guys both go at it, see what you come up with. And then, the grand jury investigation, it's a big deal. And I do think it's going to result in indictments. Anyway, here's Miller talking about just how bad she is and how she weaponized her job. And don't ever forget that.
Letitia James is one of the most corrupt, shameless individuals ever to hold public office. She is guilty not only of those crimes, but of countless more crimes by using and abusing her public office to try to persecute an innocent man, depriving him of his rights, engaging in a conspiracy to obstruct our election, and to overthrow our democratic processes and procedures. She is guilty of multiple significant serial criminal violations.
Yeah. Okay. So he's laying it all out there. Pam Bondi now has an investigator in charge of this investigation. And yeah, I think it's going to result in some real problems. Some indictments coming forward for Letitia James. I mean, not to mention Adam Schiff, and we're going to get to him in a minute. But you want to know how important this is. Remember when Matt Gaetz was actually asking Merrick Garland all about this? He was like, so wait a second, were you guys in cahoots somehow? Was Letitia James and her office talking to you guys? Was Alvin Bragg? Was Fannie Willis? This was what he was trying to get to the bottom of, because they were trying to understand how orchestrated all of this was. And I suspect now with this discovery phase, as they do this investigation, they're going to have access to a lot of things that they want to know more about, shall I say. In other words, how rigged was this? How purposeful was this? I think you and I know the answer to all that. But it's important that the rest of the world understand. I mean, it's all coming out now. It's amazing, just amazing what went down and how they tried to take him down, how they tried to derail him before he even got into office then back in 2016. But Matt Gaetz was asking Garland about this. This was, maybe a couple of years ago. And this is an important sort of thing he's getting at, because he's trying to understand what the coordination level was. Well, now we're going to find out. Watch.
Communicating with these state and local prosecutions against Trump, you can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fannie Willis' office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
Well, I'm going to say again, we do not control those offices. They make their own decisions.
The question is whether you communicate with them, not whether you control them. Do you communicate with them, and will you provide those communications?
You make a request, we'll refer it to our Office of Legislative Affairs.
But see, here's the thing. You come in here and you lodge this attack that it's a conspiracy theory, that there is coordinated lawfare against Trump. And then when we say, fine, just give us the documents, give us the correspondence, and then if it's
And so did you notice how he tried to punt? He didn't want to actually give an answer to anything. Yeah, I'm really close to the camera right now. I'm on the road, by the way. I'm still, as you can see, still traveling, still on the boat. So hopefully this show gets through to you loud and clear. I'm using Elon's Starlink, so I'm going to hold him accountable if I don't get through to you right now. Anyway, that's a perfectly reasonable request, and Matt was never able to get that. He was demanding some kind of, record of the correspondence. Now they're going to be able to get all this, and that's what's really important. So I do think that she's up against a lot right now, and it's good. It's the right thing to have happen. I mean, we need to have consequences, right, for people like Letitia James. We also need to have consequences, ladies and gentlemen, for the likes of the Schiff show. I mean, we're talking about the Schiff really hitting the fan. Everybody's having fun with this one because you can't help yourself. I used to always say the Schiff show, but the Schiff hitting the fan, it really is. I mean, it really is. So all kinds of things have come out just within the last 24 hours, including this little wowza. So there's 3,500 pages of classified intel that Adam Schiff had access to. And he basically used all this intel to come up with, which was, by the way, manufactured, right, by the Democrats, including Hillary Clinton's team. Yeah, the law firm that she hired, Perkins Coie, Perkins Coie went out and hired Fusion GPS. They went out and hired Christopher Steele, who went out and hired somebody that we even suspected of being, what do you know, a Russian spy. Whew. 6 degrees of separation. It gets a little too close for comfort, right? So anyway, she had some sketchy characters, shall we say. I mean, Perkins Coie had like a nice reputation, but it just kept getting a little bit murkier and murkier right as you went down. So all this stuff was created that we now know that, right, by the opposition research team. It was fed to Democrats, including one Adam Schiff, who then went forward. I mean, he impeached the guy 3 times, right? I mean, it was one thing after another. So he had an axe to grind. He wanted, of course, to, now we know through this whistleblower that he wanted to be the head of the CIA. God help us, had that thing come to fruition, for goodness sakes. I'll tell you, Americans, we tend to get these things right. And we knew that the Clinton team would be a bad team, but, they didn't get in, and it's like nobody could handle it. So now what are we dealing with? We're dealing with a guy who may actually go to prison for, well, could we say this is treasonous? I think you could. Because, if you have access to specific intel that's classified and privileged, people are mad at Julian Assange. Well, he's paying the consequences, is he not? So why would Adam Schiff get off the hook? He had a guy or a girl. We don't actually know if it's a guy or a girl. It's a whistleblower. He had somebody on his staff that told him, buddy, you can't do this. You just can't do this. And he wouldn't take that seemingly for an answer. So this is all what has come out. Let me show you here in part of this documentation that was first reported by Just the News and has now been picked up, well, by some of us, not all of us, right? Because the mainstream media doesn't want anything to do with these things. Anyway, when he was, running the show there, the Schiff show, as I like to call it, he believed that he would have been appointed, allegedly, as the director of the CIA had candidate Hillary Clinton won the election. That's according to the whistleblower. Now, also according to the whistleblower, and this is really, really important, in February of 2017, that would be February 13th, 2017, he instructed the staff that he wanted to, quote, drive the Russian involvement issue into a joint inquiry similar to the 9/11 Commission. And to do so, he instructed the staffers to use any sources they had developed to gather information, which was then going to be made public through the media in order to compel public opinion. You see how they're trying to manipulate public opinion over and over and over again. It's really pretty darn gross. So I think that's important as we look at this to remember they're constantly trying to manipulate public opinion. One of the things that they tried to do was to collect more information on Michael Flynn. Poor Michael Flynn, we know how that one went down. Information on Michael Flynn's contact with Russia. They tried to deflect the request by telling them that the information was likely held by the FBI. Nonetheless, Schiff kept asked again, to which they said they'd give it a try, although they were actually never able to read out all the contacts. I mean, it's pretty incredible in light of the fact that Adam Schiff was out there telling everyone over and over again that this president effectively wasn't legit. He was put there by the Russians, etc. John Solomon from Just the News, head of Just the News, first reporting this, he gave the documents, I guess, to Kash Patel, and now there's going to probably be an inquiry into all of this. So Adam Schiff is, what his pants right about now, shall we say? Yeah, okay. I usually don't go there, but we have to because we can't help ourselves. Sometimes I'm like a 10-year-old boy. Here's John Solomon. Listen to him.
Listen, this whistleblower literally sat in a meeting, he tells the FBI, where Adam Schiff authorized the leaking of classified secrets to dirty up Donald Trump and to try to build towards either a select committee in Congress or a special prosecutor. This whistleblower was a career intelligence officer. He had worked for the House Intelligence Committee, Democrat staff for a dozen years when he came forward to the FBI. He gave 4 interviews. He gave very specific information to the FBI, and nothing happened. Why? Because the Justice Department simply decided to take a pass. How many times have we sat around in the last decade and heard, we're going to get to the bottom of that classified leak, and then a few months later, we couldn't get to the bottom of that classified leak. In the case of Adam Schiff, They got to the bottom of some classified leaks, but the Justice Department chose not to act. So tonight, past attorney generals, people like Merrick Garland and Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein, who was acting on Russiagate, they've got some serious questions answered. Did they know about this Adam Schiff stuff? Why did they allow it to be passed on? And will anything happen in the current Justice Department?
I mean, not to mention, apparently this whistleblower went to higher ups and filed multiple reports saying, oh my gosh, Congressman Schiff is trying to leak classified intel. And nobody did anything. Surprise, surprise on that one, right? Nobody did a darn thing. And he went out there and he continued to spout his nonsense all over the airwaves over and over again.
In which the Russians offered help, which we know they did. The campaign accepted help, which we know they did. The Russians then delivered help, which we know they did.
There is circumstantial evidence of collusion. The case is more than that, and I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. So,
you've said on more than one occasion that you've seen ample evidence of the Trump campaign's Russia collusion. Last March, you said you had more than circumstantial evidence of treasonous collusion with Russia.
I've certainly said that there's ample evidence of collusion.
Can you agree that there has been no evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy that has been presented thus far between the Trump campaign and Russia?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy.
But we do know this. The Russians offered help. The campaign accepted help. The Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning.
Reviewing the evidence that I have.
So he said a lot of stuff. And he apparently leaked a whole bunch of stuff. Like, what kind of person does that? I mean, you're a member of government. You've got access to specific intel, maybe because, you actually, for some patriotic reason. No, this wasn't about patriotism. According to the whistleblower, it's because he's mad he didn't get to become the head of the CIA. He thought if Hillary was in charge, he'd be all set. So Adam Schiff is going to be in a lot of trouble. I want to go back. Do you remember when the director of the CIA, John Radcliffe, was in his confirmation hearings? And he was asked about, whether or not he would be transparent and truthful. And one of the things he brought up was directly related to all of this, because he knew that Schiff was up to no good back then. And he kind of referenced it. This is a call out of Schiff back in, quite recently, I think this was in January of this year. Just listen in to what John Radcliffe said. And remember, this is now the head of the CIA. So Adam, watch out.
In 2020, when a chairman of an intelligence committee misrepresented that a laptop owned by then candidate Biden's son was somehow a Russian intelligence operation, and 51 former intelligence officials used the imprimatur of IC authority to go along with that, I stood in the breach. I stood alone and told the American people the truth about that. So I think my record in terms of speaking truth to power and defending the intelligence community and its good work is very clear. And what I can assure you is those types of instances, if I'm in that position as CIA director and have to do that again, as uncomfortable as that can be, to be accused, the truth will ultimately defend itself, and I think that that intelligence will as well.
So the whistleblower did report this, actually, and in 2017, the whistleblower was informed that the issue, I'm quoting here directly from the report, would not be investigated further by the DOJ, as congressmen have immunity to all speech and actions made on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, did not believe that the activity he witnessed would be protected by this legal provision. Well, the whistleblower was right. Like, there was, I don't think he is protected by this, because you can't take secret intel, classified intel, and then go out and call up your buddies at the New York Times who you have on speed dial and whoever else, right? Like, you name it. Like this, they were in the business of trying to manipulate public opinion, and they owned the media. So they had the media resources to be able to do this. He hated Trump. They had their narrative and they ran with it. I mean, to the point where they even had Jimmy Carter saying, this is not a legitimate president. So it's all coming out. And interestingly, you haven't seen Adam Schiff say a whole lot on any of this, whether it's the mortgage fraud thing, whether it's the whistleblower. I mean, he's up the, you know what, this is the Schiff's Creek, okay? I mean, I think he actually could find himself in enormous amounts of trouble, but there's a lot of people that need to be held accountable right now. The media, never reported on any of this fairly. They're incapable of reporting on any of this fairly. It's just not in their DNA. I want to turn to what they've been doing in terms of DC, right? Because they're not reporting any of that in DC very fairly right now. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. I mean, if you listen to them, for goodness sakes, you'd think that like DC was actually, safe, right? But before I do, I want to tell you about balance of nature, because you know how into ingredients I actually am. I read the ingredients now on everything. I actually credit RFK Jr. I'm putting this on the screen so you can see balance of nature, code Trish.com, code Trish for 35% off, and you actually get a free, limited time only, a free extra spice and fiber supplements. So go check this out. We love our sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show, because they make it all possible for me to be here with you free every day. So there's no charge on this. And, we just think the world of these guys. And I'll tell you, I think the world of myself and my family and my kids, and ingredients are really important. And so one of the things I like about this company and their supplements is that their ingredients are good things only, okay? We're talking about supplements that have no binders, they have no additives, no artificial colors, no fillers, just whole fruits and veggies, gluten-free, vegan-friendly, all that good stuff. And they use advanced vacuum cold processes in order to better preserve the nutritional value. So I can say with confidence that when I'm taking my fruits and veggies, I'm actually getting 31 ingredients worth of fruits and veggies. That's a big deal every single day from Balance in Nature. And you can, to join me in this, use my discount code TRISH to get 35% off, free shipping, plus for like a limited time, I said you get the free bottle of fiber and spice. But you have to use my discount code TRISH. It helps the show, it helps you, it helps me. All good stuff, lots of helping all the way around. I should point out their phone number, you can call directly, is 1-800-246-8751. 751. So 1-800-246-8751. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. I'll put, you know what I'll do? I'll make sure that we have it in the show notes as well for you. So do give them a call today. Meanwhile, back to how the media here is so viciously on one side and one side only. I want to look at what's going on in DC, because this is a big story, you guys. A very, very big story. It has some elements I want to bring you. So I'm just taking a look at the rundown so I can make sure that we have them all here. And indeed we do, because Donald Trump is taking over DC in the interest of making this a safer and better place, right? Who's going to argue with that? Well, the media. The media apparently doesn't care about the fact that, well, the nation's capital is looking at a homicide rate that is 41 per 100,000. I mean, that's awful. It's more, we talked about this yesterday, it's more than Mexico City, which blows me away, because actually, my colleague over at 76 Research, 76research.com, market's on fire again today. We'll talk about that in a little bit, because I want you to be investing. 76research.com is my company that I have there. My colleague, Rob, was down in Mexico City recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, be careful, be careful, be careful. Well, I should have told him that when he went to DC, right? Because look at that, 41 per 100,000 versus Mexico City, just 8 per 100,000. I mean, that just blows me away. Lima, Peru, 7 per 100,000. I mean, you are way better off in Nairobi than you are in Washington, D.C. So Donald Trump wants to change this. And the New York Times is flipping out. The New York Times is like, no, it's not that bad. Look at this. Look at this. Okay, this is in today's paper. In many American cities, the rate of violent crime rose sharply during the coronavirus pandemic and fell in the years afterwards, now returning to pre-COVID levels. Washington's crime spike lasted longer than that of many cities, but over the past 18 months, violent crime, they write, there has fallen considerably. It's like they're trying to give them a pass. They're like, okay, it went a little bit longer, but it's getting better. It's getting better. The murder rate has declined to 2019 levels. Oh, like that was really good, right? 2019 was still horrific. Okay, it's been horrific for years. In fact, I'll tell you, it's been so horrific for years that you can even think about, Joe Biden back in, this is 1992. Wait till you see this one that I found. Okay, Joe Biden, 1992, on the floor talking about how he goes out of his way to make sure that he doesn't get carjacked. Yeah. In D.C. So don't tell me New York Times, like this is something, Johnny come lately, and let's go back to the levels of what? 2019. I mean, you've had a problem there for decades in D.C., and finally someone's coming along and trying to fix it. And I mean, what do they say? Don't look a gift horse in the mouth? And yet, what do? They look a gift horse in the mouth. Of course, here's Joe Biden.
Driving home, my staff who lives here in the Hill reminded me, don't stop at a stoplight until I'm out of town. If I see a red light late at night, since there's very little traffic, slow up at the other block so I never come to a full stop except in the middle of the block because of carjackings. Stopping at a light.
Yeah, because of carjackings. So he was like speeding through lights, right? His staff told him to do it. He had an excuse because DC was that dangerous. That was back in 1992. I gotta tell you, like this is crazy. And yet the New York Times is trying to make excuses. It's as though they're like, well, hey, we're back at 2019 levels. Whoop-de-doo. They said this is not the city that the president described on Monday, one of crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor that was in need of liberation. Well, hey guys, I'm sorry, he kind of outsmarted you on this one now, didn't he? Because it turns out that legally speaking, the president has every right to be able to go in and take hold in an emergency situation of the DC police force, right? Because it's not a state, doesn't really belong to anyone. So the president does have jurisdiction there. And he's saying, it's that bad. We have to do something. And the media just keeps losing it. It's like the little boy who cried wolf. Again, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, for goodness sakes. I want to show you what the president said right here as he spoke about the disaster that is D.C.
Driving home, my staff who lives here in the Hill.
That's the wrong one. Good thing he's not there anymore, right? It's amazing. He actually was kind of with it, sort of, kind of, back in 1992. Here we go.
This issue directly impacts the functioning of the federal government and is a threat to America, really. It's a threat to our country. We have other cities also that are bad, very bad. You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly, as they say. You'll have more police, and you'll be so happy because you'll be safe. When you walk down the street, you're going to see police, or you're going to see FBI agents. We're going to have a lot of agents on the street. And you're going to have a lot of essentially military, and we will bring in the military if it's needed, by the way.
No.
All right, you heard that, right? So again, part of the media outrage. This next clip I'm going to show you, this reminds me of when Joe Scarborough was like, best Biden ever, because sitting there, he's looking you straight in the face, and he gets himself into like a little bit of a conundrum because he's like, oh, DC. And he can't like ignore the fact that DC is dangerous, okay? I'm sorry, like it just is dangerous. So is New York City for that matter. All right, so he starts to like go down this path and he's like, well, so he's struggling on DC, and then he flips around to New York and he's like, oh, but it's so safe now. And I'm like, really? Oh, clearly you moved to Florida or something, right? I heard you're doing the show live out of Florida there. Good for you. Home studio out of Florida, save on the tax. Maybe it's a little safer than the likes of New York City. Anyway, watch this. It's classic. And just remember, best Biden ever. What a liar.
Don't bring in the military. Willie, what's interesting about this list, first of all, I don't know what problems he has in New York City. Again, crime in that city and quality of life in that city, though after COVID went down, I mean, my God, I think New York City is safer now than it's been in like 55 years, 60 years. I mean, the stats are just off the charts. And throughout most of New York, people just don't feel the menace that you feel not only in Washington, D.C., which, by the way, Washington, D.C. is a special case. It's the nation's capital. And again, my beef going back to my days in Congress always was, well, why isn't Congress doing more? I mean, they're really letting the nation's capital be guided by the lunacy of Marion Barry and some people on the city council that have some crazy ideas about, stopping the police from doing their jobs. But it's the nation's capital. So I think Congress and the president should have stepped in 30 years ago. But the president left some cities off the list.
Okay, you see what I said? Like, he's kind of just talking himself around in circles here. He's like, I don't know how to quite criticize him on this because D.C. is kind of bad and it is the nation's capital. But.
Of course, red state cities that actually some of the most dangerous cities in America, whether you're talking about Memphis, Tennessee, Birmingham, Alabama, or a lot of other cities in red states that are per person just as dangerous or actually more dangerous than Washington, D.C.
I'm just looking at your comments, you guys. Peace of my mind. By the way, thanks for reaching out on Twitter. Right, so that's why everyone is moving to New York City. Not. And then let's see. We've got a few more of them here. I'm just dying. You guys are like, yeah, you know why crime is down is because look at this. Greg Prince, and you're right. George Soros's judges, they're not prosecuting. I mean, I spoke with a nurse actually in DC who told me an interesting story. She is married to a cop, and she said like they're not being allowed in New York City to actually move forward on crime because they're trying to keep the numbers so low. So think about that for a second, okay? So it's all about optics and not about like, how it really is. So again, remember, as everyone tries to tell you, like the New York Times, oh, it's safe, it's safe. These are the numbers. That doesn't look very safe to me, okay? And you know who else it doesn't look safe to? This doesn't look very safe to a member of the media establishment, a reporter, actually not a New York reporter, a DC reporter actually spoke out about all this, right? She's looking at these crime numbers, but not only is she looking at the crime numbers, she's feeling these crime numbers. I mean, she works in Washington, D.C., and the ABC News Bureau has been hit with a wave of crime in the nearby area. So all of a sudden she goes off script, and in the middle of this interview, she just starts ranting about how bad the crime is. And I'm sure everybody at ABC is like, wait, what? No, you're not supposed to say that, right? You're supposed to like massage this or like walk some kind of line somehow, some way, because, we have our side and we're sticking to it. Well, she just went rogue, and I want you to see this. This is the ABC reporter talking with some others about her own experience. And gosh darn it, nobody should have to deal with this. No one.
We've been talking so much about the numbers, and yeah, usually that's how you play devil's advocate, is you talk about, oh, well, stats say crime is down. However, I can tell you firsthand here in downtown D.C. where we work, right here around our bureau, just in the past 6 months, there were 2 people shot. 1 person died, literally 2 blocks down here from the bureau. It was within the last 2 years that I actually was jumped walking just 2 blocks down from here. And then just this morning, one of my coworkers said her car was stolen a block away from the bureau. So we can talk about the numbers going down, but crime is happening every single day because we're all experiencing it firsthand while working and living down here.
So this gets back to what one of you guys was just saying. In other words, you have a lot of people in place, and what I anecdotally am telling you about, the woman I met who's a nurse married to a cop, and they can't actually, do their jobs. Like, there's this effort to make it look better, but they're not actually making it safer. They're not actually making it better. And this poor woman, as she said, she was jumped in D.C. Her colleague that day had her car stolen. I mean, this is not okay, right? This is in like a downtown area. And this, for goodness sakes, is our nation's capital. Not that it should matter. I mean, you should be safe wherever. And so Trump has taken this on. And you know what? This is one that he can take on. And they don't have the legal might to fight back on this. And so I'm kind of wondering if the mayor realizes that, because back in 1974, they wrote this into the code that in case of emergency, the president would be in charge of the DC police. And he said, this is yesterday, DC is going to be liberated today. All the crime and filth and savagery and scum, they're going to disappear. I'm going to make our capital great again. We're not going to tolerate this, because you have innocent people, right, that need to be able to live and go about their business. And what has happened is truly, truly, truly awful. There's no reason that people should be living in an area that is filled with so much crime. And he made it really clear. Let me show you this excerpt that caused a little bit of a stir. Because, he's not being politically correct about it. It's not time to be politically correct about this stuff. Here we go.
And we're getting rid of the slums, too. We have slums here. We're getting rid of them. I know it's not politically correct. You'll say, oh, so terrible. No, we're getting rid of the slums where they live.
So he's saying he doesn't want the squalor. He doesn't want the slums. He doesn't want the crime. And the media is like, no, we want all that. It reminds me of when I first moved to San Francisco, which I called Sucks Francisco a lot of years ago. My husband and I moved out there. Thank you, Thomas Conservative. I appreciate it. I would just say that Sucks Francisco was named that very, very quickly by me, because I actually didn't feel safe. And that was a lot of years ago. You try going there now. And I didn't feel safe. And we lived in a safe area, Nob Hill. But if you went down the hill, you're up on the hill, right? If you went down the hill, just even halfway down the hill, I mean, there were all kinds of things. We're in polite company. I'm not going to talk about it, but let's just suffice it to say it was a really aggressive community. And they also had a lot of homelessness there. And I was sort of stunned by it, because I had come from New York City, and don't forget, there had been a lot of cleanup. Thank you, Rudy Giuliani, that had gone on in New York City. And I went to San Francisco. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This homelessness is out of control. And again, we're going back 20 years, guys. I mean, this is a long time ago. And it was that bad then. And at the time, Gavin Newsom was married to Kimberly Guilfoyle, and he was running for mayor. And he had a proposal to get the homeless off the streets. And he was going to require that instead of going in and getting cash from the government, every week they literally handed out cash. He would require them to actually be in housing where they would have treatment programs. And, he couldn't get this through. It's like the whole darn place just loved the fact that they had all the homelessness there. They saw it as part of their charm. I'm like, I'm sorry, this is not charming. This is uncomfortable. This is dangerous. And it wasn't just the homelessness. It was a lot of other things as well. So listen, DC deserves this. And for the media to sit there and try and pretend like it's not, it's not crime-ridden, it's not a bad place, that is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it really is ridiculous. And there's no reason for that. I mean, as I said, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Jonathan Mason writing that DC youth have no job opportunities. Maybe if they created trade schools, right? And they developed some jobs for kids outside of DC, that's a good idea. There's a whole lot of things that could be done. But for whatever reason, the Democrats haven't been willing to do any of it. They just they dig in their heels. And right now it's just ABT, anything but Trump. And so as a result of this, he's out there trying to fix things, and they don't want any part of it. You think about the mayor. I give her credit, because she was asked about this, of course, on MSNBC, where they're foaming at the mouth. They're blaming racism. Of course, when in doubt, go back to that. Go back to the well. They're trying to say that he's racist against young black kids. It's, I'm sorry. You want to offer a better opportunity. And that means making sure that those kids on the streets anywhere have safety so that there are alternatives, that they can go to school, that they can go to work. Look at this. The mayor of DC, like, she's like, okay, you know what? I realize, like, it's popular rhetoric on the campaign trail, but the reality is we need the help. I give her credit for this.
One of the things that we have seen over and over from the president, from his team, Stephen Miller saying it's like Baghdad in Ethiopia. They seem to hold their harshest criticism sometimes for cities that are majority black and brown. Do you see that, and what do you think that means?
I think that I have been dealing kind of with this issue for a number of years. It's kind of easy fodder on the campaign trail. But now we're talking about governing, and my job is to focus on making sure our city is running well, and people enjoy a great quality of life. And I think we're doing a really good job. We do need the federal government's help, as I mentioned, because they have an outsized influence on our criminal justice system. We need more prosecutors. We need more judges. There are other ways to help. Even we want to rebuild our jail, and there are ways that the feds can help with that. But also just doing their part, cutting the grass, fixing the fountains, making sure that federal law enforcement is doing all of the policing that they can do. And I just have to say thank you to MPS, FBI, ATF, who've always worked cooperatively with us, and we expect that they will again.
Okay. You know what? Good for her. Like, she's actually, like, welcoming the help. She's like, okay, you want to help? I'll take it. We need the help. And she's right. They do need the help. And yet, again, I'm looking at NPR, guys. NPR, they are just unbelievable. I'm so sick of it. And they're just bitter, because they lost all their extra funding from the State Department, right? Let's take a look at this right here. I was reading their piece today. They're trying to say that this is somehow racist, that Trump's primary targets are those he describes as criminals. In this case, often teenagers, many of them black. Washington has struggled, they write, at times with violence caused by young. Like, this is so funny. Like, at times Washington has struggled, at times with young men who sometimes ride motorcycles and four-wheelers. Trump spoke about them at length Monday. The city's Metro Police Chief, Pamela Smith, was asked about the issue in a separate Monday press conference, and she said, quote, "We want young people to be safe in our city. We want them to be able to enjoy the activities of our city, but," now this is interesting, this is the police chief, she said, "we're not going to tolerate the kind of criminal activity that we've seen in the past." Okay, now you have both the mayor, a black woman, and the head of the police, also a black woman, saying, yeah, like, we're going to crack down. I mean, I don't know where you guys were in the past. Like, suddenly now you're not going to tolerate it. Good. I don't know why you tolerated it earlier, but better late than never, I guess. Maybe you're figuring out you got to play ball here with the new president of the United States who means business. But think about this. I mean, who is in charge, right, of the D.C. police? Who is in charge? Well, we got a funny shot going on. There we go. I think that was my phone. Who's in charge of the D.C. police? It's a woman who actually has a rather interesting background. Very interesting background. This is Pamela Smith, ladies and gentlemen, and she's not exactly who you would think of for a job like this, only because her background doesn't quite match up to be, it has nothing to do with her being a woman, nothing to do with her ethnicity, and everything to do with, she really hasn't worked as a, dare I say, real police officer, because I don't think, working in the canine department, training dogs or training drivers, or actually being the DEI chief. Like, I just don't think that really, or park ranger. Like, I mean, look, I'm just a layperson here, right? I don't have any real police experience, but it doesn't seem to me that is a qualification for becoming head of the police. So here's a little bit about her, courtesy of Wiki. Take it with a grain of salt because it's Wikipedia. But it says that she became head of the police department after first serving as its chief equity officer. So she went in as the chief equity officer in 2023. Woohoo! Like, that's a real compelling job, right? And then got promoted by the mayor to run the police force. Here's a little bit more about her. Pamela, after college, moved to New York, where she worked as a seasonal park ranger at the Gateway National Recreation Center. Again, you know, like Parks and Rec. Like, that's not exactly DC police material, shall I say. And she was a social worker. Oh my goodness, she's just checking all the boxes, right? But none that would actually qualify you for being head of police in DC. She was a social worker out on Staten Island. Great. She worked in the foster care system. Apparently, she had been a product of foster care at one point, so she's giving back to her community. Great. Okay, again, doesn't qualify you for being head of the police force there in Washington, D.C. And then we've got more on her. Okay, look at this. She worked again as United States Park Police in 1998 as a patrol officer in the San Francisco field office. But is she still like Parks when she's in San Francisco? I'd like to clarify that. And then she got the big gig. She got to train the cute little German Shepherds, right? The canine unit. I mean, really? Okay, so she became the canine unit handler, and then went on to help law enforcement driver training in a program in Georgia. So again, I'm just looking at this, and I don't know how on earth, except that we had a sudden push in society with the wokeness and the DEI, and suddenly this woman gets promoted to run the DC police. I mean, that's a big, big jump, right? From the canine trainer and the driver, teacher, and the park ranger to this. So here's where it all came together. In May 2022, she became the chief equity officer assigned to the executive office of the chief of police in DC, and she led the department's efforts on diversity, equity, and inclusion. She was really focused on DEI. She supervised the whole DEI operation. And in the interim, I guess now the numbers are a little bit better, but don't forget, you're not allowed to arrest, certain people if they're a certain demographic because you don't want that on the record, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have a whole lot of things going on, a lot of layers that have nothing to do with actually keeping a city safe. And this woman is running the whole shebang. And she has really, in my estimation, no qualification to be doing so. She's kind of this DEI queen. So why is she there? Well, I think we know why she's there, right? She has to be there because, she checks all the boxes and they put her there. And these days are over. I mean, I would just say, Harvard had to learn it from the Supreme Court. Disney's having to learn it from the FCC head, Brandon Carr. You're actually violating the law if you're picking someone just because of their race, their ethnicity, their gender. You can't do that. It's like best man or woman, period, for the job. Okay, that's who we are as a nation. We're a meritocracy. You guys might not like it, but here's the reality. Well, I know you like it, but some other people out there, they don't like this because they want, what they call equal outcomes. They don't want equal opportunities. They want equal outcomes because they're all a bunch of socialists that frankly need to go and live in a socialist country where they'd be much happier, right? Go to Venezuela. Be my guest, for goodness sakes. This is partly why I started 76 Research. You guys have heard me say this before, but I was so sick of this DEI stuff, which actually was affecting markets and investing. And I'm like, this is wacky. Like, you want to invest in companies that are good companies. They're going to make money. Like, it's not that hard. We don't have to worry about, do we have somebody with purple hair and green fingernails on the board? We just need to worry about whether or not it's a good company and is going to produce profits. By the way, speaking of which, and you go over to 76 Research when you can. I'm just going to put it in the show notes right here for you. 76, actually, we're live, so I'm just putting it into our chat. I can't, look at this. I can't, what do they say? Walk and chew gum at the same time. 76 Research. I can't actually write and spell and talk to you. I'm sorry. At the same time. So when you can, go over to 76 Research, use code word dollar, DOLLAR. I can talk. Maybe not type. and talk, but I can talk. .com. Get it for $1 a month. First 2 months. If you don't like it, we'll refund the $1. No harm, no foul. But I think it's really important to be investing for the future right now. I still think that there's upside to come. I know that the markets are way up and there's a lot of optimism. You've got this great read on inflation. Now, I'm the only one who's probably going to tell you that, because you look at the way everybody else is reacting here and they're all freaking out. Let me show you. I mean, markets are higher though. You know what? The markets are higher for a reason. The markets are higher because they recognize what I recognize. And let me just double check and make sure they still are higher, because as I came to air, they indeed were. And yes, we're looking at S&P up about 1%, over 1% on the Dow, NASDAQ up 1.2%. And this is because inflation held steady. That's the Wall Street Journal headline coming out today, and they kind of had it right, although they got a little overly fixated on the core number, which rose to 3.1%. Not a big deal. You know why? Energy prices, they're coming down. Food prices are coming down, and the core number excludes food and energy. And I love how liberals always want to look at the core number. And I'm like, wait a second. You need the overall number because you can't exclude food and energy. Like, people actually, what do they consume? Food and energy. So when you guys keep looking at the core number to make yourselves feel better, that's not the number that actually affects everybody. So the core number, it's fine, but you know what? Here's the New York Times interpretation of this. By the way, Paul Krugman's been put on notice. Donald Trump the other day came out on Truth Social and he called out Paul Krugman. He's the economist who teaches at Princeton and writes for the New York Times. And, you know, he's been wrong on absolutely everything because he always thinks that Trump is going to fail. And what do you know? Like, Trump succeeds. And so everybody was like, oh my God, the inflation is going to be terrible. Like, we're going to have a horrible inflation. Just wait till this report comes out. And you know what? It didn't budge. It was 2.7%, the same as it was last month. What does the Fed shoot for? Somewhere between 2 and 2.5% inflation. They want a little bit of inflation because you want to have that expectation of inflation. It helps encourage people to buy today as opposed to saying, well, I can buy next month, right? The deflation is really scary because then people just don't buy because they're like, oh, the price is going to go down, go down, go down, go down. At least with a little bit of inflation in the economy, the thinking is you have it working smoothly. So this report came out in the New York Times. They were just itching. So was Bloomberg for a big, big, big number on inflation. They're like, you know, it comes in light at 2.7%. What are they going to do? They still print this headline. Check it out. U.S. inflation report shows effects of President Trump's tariffs. And so they you know, they're like, oh, it's clothes and these sorts of things. Well, you know what? Like, I'm sorry, but maybe we shouldn't be buying, you know, disposable clothing on Shein, the Chinese site with all its toxic chemicals in it, right? Like maybe it's time that we actually have stuff that is made in America and is safe and is good and we like and we know is good. But I would say that, you know, the markets overall, we're seeing this optimism and it's important. I love seeing the optimism. I encourage you to go to 76 Research. I also encourage you, as we think about optimism and a growing economy, what else is going to benefit from that? Energy. And what is also benefiting? But U.S. energy. And this is a big deal. This is a big deal, guys, because the left has had their way for so long, even on everything, right? On everything. And it gets a little annoying after a while because they've been able to brainwash everybody. One of the reasons that actually we get a loud noise behind me. I don't know if you can hear it. I think another ship is taking off. One of the reasons why Rob and I started this 76 Research was because of everything that the left was doing. It was just impossible. And part of that, you know, he tells a great story about how he wanted to invest in an energy company. He was working in a big fund, but because of all the rules and regulations regarding this wokeness, he actually couldn't. And he's like, this is when the light bulb went off. Like, this has just gone too far. This has really gotten crazy. They tried to really restrict the U.S. energy industry. But you know what? The U.S. energy industry, it's good. I mean, fossil fuels. Think of how that they have been able to change our lives in really meaningful ways. I mean, air conditioning, just the basic, you know, I'm overseas right now in Europe and they're not as into air conditioning, shall we say, as we are. They're just not because, you know, They're very conscious of energy, and we commend them for that. But the air conditioning is not everywhere, and you go to some third world country and you really don't have it. And the life expectancy, right, is not the same as where you do have it. You think about all the medical devices that work off of fossil fuels. They're not all that bad. And I think it's important to just remember that they have really extended our lives in meaningful ways, and we should appreciate that. In fact, that big noise, if you heard the foghorn, that was actually my boat that I'm on and departing right now, because I'm looking at the screen and I'm feeling all of a sudden a little bit of motion underneath me. So anyway, long story short, they are one of our great sponsors on the program. This is a company, NASDAQ listed, Prairie operating company, high growth, low cost producer of safe and responsible American energy. You can learn more by going to oilfacts.com. So we appreciate very much their patronage. But, we began the show talking about both Adam Schiff and, of course, Letitia James. And at this moment in time, as we consider just the hysteria from the media, as we consider what's going on vis-a-vis DC and the crackdown there, as we think about Adam Schiff now in the hot seat, I would just say, there's going to be a whole lot of people that are going to be facing consequences. There are some that might be more top of agenda. I mean, Adam Schiff certainly would be one. I think Letitia James, they were both pretty egregious in what they did and how they did it. And so this is a little bit of payback and retribution. And before anybody says, well, that's not good, we shouldn't be doing that, and I know a lot of folks on the left are saying that, here's the reality. Think of what went down and think about how that can never actually happen again. I mean, you just can't say, I don't like the other side, so I am going to make their lives miserable. You have to remember, this is a country. This is the United States of America. And so no matter which side wins, we need to keep moving forward. They've rigged the game for so long. We didn't even get a chance today to talk about all the gerrymandering, right? But you think about all the gerrymandering that they've done, and we'll get into that in better depth tomorrow, because I've been looking at these numbers and I'm like, wait a second. You've got states where you have almost half the population that happens to be Republican, and yet they don't have any Republican representatives in Congress. No. Why is that? Because these guys have gerrymandered the heck out of everything. Because when they're in charge, they take the ball and they run with it. And we try to be nice. We're the nice, good, conservatives. And they take advantage of that. And so now Trump's coming in. He's like, enough is enough. You know what? You guys had your chance. You've ruined so many American cities. DC is certainly top of the list. Chicago, hey, you might be next. New York City, watch out. LA, it's already clear. He's made it clear to Gavin Newsom. We can send in the National Guard when we need to, and we will. And we have authority to do that from the federal court, the 9th District Court, Circuit Court, that actually ruled in our favor for that. So I just think that all of this is coming to a head, and he's taken no prisoners, and he's out to do what he wanted to do from the very beginning. And so expect a lot of change, and it's going to be rocky, but that's good, right? And meanwhile, we're nearly 1 million. We're nearly 1 million subs. I'm so excited about it. Thank you for all you guys do to make this show a success. I'm going to be back with you tomorrow with much, much more. We're going to get into this gerrymandering stuff because it's pretty important. And then in the meantime, I'm going to go have a little dinner. I'm actually 6 hours ahead of you. Can you believe that? Where I am. It's good. Right before school starts. I'll be able to get up really, really early. And the kids will too. That'll be a good thing. Anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing your part to make this a success. We are very close to 1 million. We're going to be having a party very soon. Thank you again, and I'll see you live tomorrow.